Resolution number 3, acting as redevelopment agency. Resolution approving New Brunswick Plaza owner Urban Renewal LLC as redeveloper for property known as Block 120, 5.01, and on the New Brunswick tax map for the construction of a mixed-use residential commercial project located in the Lower George, number 2, redevelopment plan area. I understand through my legal counsel, through our legal counsel at the Housing Authority, John Hoffman, that the parties are here to discuss to the board any and all questions you may have. Mr.
I can summarize it since it's a brand new redevelopment plan just adopted by the city. And it permits a mixed use residential and commercial development. It's located in the Lower George, and it really consists of the Abundant Life Family Worship Church property, which will be divided into 2 lots. One lot will have a high-rise development consisting of 450 units. The other lot will have the church and 25 additional parking spaces. The project is a joint venture of Infinity LLC owned by Shaman Jacobowitz, SDJ NB Plaza LLC owned by George Seawright, and the Abundant Life Family Worship Church, which owns the property. The application and the property complies with the plan. The plan, it consists of a 45-story mixed-use building consisting of a mix of studio, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom units, of which 80 will be low and moderate income housing. Of the 80, 20 will be studio, 30 will be 1-bedroom, and 30 will be 2-bedroom. And they'll be interdispersed throughout the project. The project will also consist of retail space, a lounge, a lobby, a spa, a pool, for stand, and the 501 space parking deck. And on the other lot was the church will remain. That's the one that faces George Street, and there'll be 20 parking spaces. The applicant submitted information which you can review, indicating their past experience, both the applicant and their construction contractor, in constructing high-rise unit buildings, and also submitted their plan. Now, I just would like to, the redevelopment plan permits housing up to 350 feet or 35 stories. It permits another 10 stories if you provide low and moderate income housing, which they have. But those 10 stories have to be set back on only 20% of the property. So if you look at the plan shows all of the building, and then shows this last 10 stories being set back. The redeveloper has substantial experience, both in constructing in Jersey City, Memphis, Tennessee, in New York City, both the redeveloper and their construction contractor. The evidence, he submitted evidence from 5 or 6 different entities indicating both construction debt financing and equity participation. The project's estimated to cost over $300 million. Construction will begin within 12 months after all governmental approvals, but not later than July 1, 2025, and be completed within 36 months or July 1st, 2028. What we're requesting is the approval of NB Plaza as the redeveloper, and it's subject to a redevelopment agreement, which will come back, which must be completed within 90 days. We have Tom Kelso here representing the redeveloper. He has his client here. They either further expand on the project and also answer any questions.
Thanks, John, and I appreciate the opportunity for the board to consider my client for designation as redeveloper on this project. It obviously is a very significant project, over $300 million. It fully is compliant with the Lower George 2 redevelopment plan. And it's the entity NB Plaza Urban Renewal LLC. It's an interesting dynamic that's going on here. We have Mr. Shimon Jacobowitz, who is the principal of Afani LLC, which are based out of Florida, but have done a lot of work in New York and New Jersey. but also in partnership with the Abundant Life Family Worship Church. I think most of the members of the board recognize that all this property is actually owned by Abundant Life Church. And it's a unique partnership to be able to bring together the church to develop on their land where they get an advantage of a participation in the project, while at the same time doing improvements to the lot that they're going to retain to upgrade it, provide a parking on site for them, and really creates, a good marriage of different types of entities for a mutual benefit. I just want to correct one thing John said. I think he referred to 400 some units. It's an 800 unit project with 80 units being affordable units. I would say that the plan says a minimum of 10%, but depending on the types of financing that they're able to achieve for affordable units, there is right now reasonable opportunity they may be able to do more than 10%. They're exploring that now. It's important to note that we are committed to comply with the plan, so it's at least 10%. But with some of the I think the Aspire project, which you're familiar with from the prior Penrose presentation, there's the Aspire program and other programs that they're exploring now with the opportunity to bring additional affordable units in. Part of the marriage between these entities that is beneficial to both is that the plan requires us to create 25 surface parking spaces for Abundant Life adjacent to their church. But in addition to that, of the 501 spaces that are being developed in the parking garage, 50 of those spaces are being dedicated to the church. So the church is getting the benefit of not only 25 new surface spaces, but also 50 spaces in the parking garage. And I think, again, that's a benefit that benefits the community, benefits the church, and while at the same time creating, a significant new development in that location. It's kind of ironic that we're sitting here finishing listening to Tim Henkel talk too much for Penrose. This building is right across the street. So they're really being done in combination with each other. I had the privilege of representing Penrose. I kept my mouth shut, but I represented Penrose in that approval and had, I think, a really positive experience with the church, which, ended with the naming of the Hildebrand Commons, and now having the Abundant Life right next door to be able to get such a unique opportunity to improve the facilities for their church. It's kind of just ironic we're here at the same time talking about them in this context. Overall, I want to emphasize that it's fully compliant with the plan. I think that I will present two witnesses for you, and I've asked them to be brief, but we want to give you a flavor for the building itself, and we have some graphics for you to see. The first I'm going to call Chris Roach, our civil engineer, to just give a few minutes on engineering, and then Mr. John Zimmer, our resident architect, who is accredited in many states, right now waiting his certification in New Jersey, but we wanted him to make the presentation for you, and then obviously available to answer any questions you have. So at this point, unless there's questions for me, I would ask Mr. Chris Roach to show himself.
Good evening, everyone.
There he is. Okay.
Do I have the ability to share my screen?
Mr. Soto, I think you're gonna have to share
I hope somebody
moderator power for that. Dan?
Dan, you're muted. You're muted.
Oh, all right. Oh, Mr. Hoffman, he's like, thanks. Hold on a second. Here we go. All right, here we go. You got it, Chris?
I do. Thank you for that. There are a few familiar faces in the room. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chris Roach. I'm a civil engineer with Langen. I'm a common attendee at the planning and zoning board meetings in New Brunswick. I've probably been in front of those boards around 50 to 75 times in the last decade. I intend to be pretty brief this evening. I'm just going to describe the existing site location, surrounding features, and then I'll highlight some of the key civil engineering items before turning it over to the project architect. So as our attorney noted, the site's identified on the city tax map as block 120, lot 5.01. It's approximately 2.1 acres and generally bound by Morris Street to the north, Nielsen Street to the east, Tabernacle Way to the south, and George Street to the west. The site's presently occupied by the Abundant Life Church along with associated parking areas. And currently there are 3 access points to the site, one off of George Street, one off of Morris Street, and one off of Nielsen Street. From a topographic perspective, the site generally slopes from George Street, which is around elevation 30, down to Nielsen Street, which is around elevation 20. And as Mr. Kelso mentioned 2 or 3 times, the entirety of the site is within the lower George Street 2 redevelopment plan. And with our future site plan application, we won't be seeking any variances from the bulk criteria of that plan. So what the applicant is proposing to construct on the property is a 45-story mixed-use building, which will contain retail components, structured parking, as well as residential units above. The building will have a footprint of approximately 40,500 square feet. Within that, it will have 25,000 square feet approximately of retail, 501 parking stalls, and the 800 residential units over top. As Mr. Kelso also alluded to, we will be constructing a 25-stall surface parking lot just to the north of the Abundant Life Church facility. With the new development, our primary proposed site access point will be off of Nielsen Street. That'll be a 24-foot wide drive. It'll provide access to the structured parking and will also provide access to our primary loading area. And the architect will show you a little bit more detail about these spaces here momentarily. From an overall parking perspective, we'll be fully compliant with the redevelopment plan. And what I mean by that is not only will we be providing the number of required parking stalls, we'll also be providing the amount of required electric vehicle parking stalls, as well as the required ADA parking stalls. The loading, as I mentioned, will be primarily done off of our Nielsen Street driveway. We're also proposing a small loading area on Morris Street where we anticipate smaller use loading vehicles, primarily to serve the retail spaces along Morris Street. From a stormwater management perspective, we'll be fully compliant with the state stormwater management regulations by installing an underground detention system. And then lastly, with the utilities, most of our utility services will be coming in off Nielsen Street, with the exception of some of our water lines, which will be coming off George Street. The reason for that exception is because there is larger existing infrastructure within George Street. The last thing I want to touch on, Mr. Kelso, was the proposed access. I mentioned that our primary access point will be off Nielsen Street. I anticipate this would be utilized 99 to 100% of the time. We do, however, have built into the design what I'll call a secondary access point, where we could get access to the structured parking from the proposed surface parking lot in George Street. The reason we're proposing this in conversations with the city engineer, due to the amount of proposed utilities going beneath the Nielsen Street driveway, as well as an existing city culvert that runs underneath that driveway. If we ever needed to get to those utilities or ever needed to get to the culverts in an emergency scenario, we'd be able to close this drive, open up the secondary access without much issue. So Tom, that was the high level overview. I'm happy to answer any detailed questions on civil engineering, or we can go right to the architectural presentation.
I have no questions for Chris. If we want to move on to our architect, unless the board has questions at this point.
We'll wait until the end.
Chris, can you hear me clearly?
I can, yes, sir.
Chris, I have seen you present many times before. You're a highly qualified individual, so I'm going to bounce a question off you just for clarity and beseech your expertise. When you talk about the stormwater management portion of this project, listen, just anecdotally, us townies know that that street down there in Nielsen will become a lake in the instances of moderate rain. How is this protecting the residents that I guess are, what is that, south of this facility exactly?
The biggest thing we're doing, and it's a state requirement, it's not just us doing it, on all development projects, we're increasing impervious coverage compared to existing conditions. You're required to install detention measures to reduce the peak flow significantly compared to existing conditions leaving your site. So without getting into too much technical detail for the 210 100-year storm event, we take what's running off the site now, and we're required to reduce that by 50, 25, and 20% for those storm events. So
Okay.
if this building and when this building is constructed, the peak flow leaving our site and going to the downstream systems will be significantly less than it is today.
I have a question.
Sure.
Yeah. You have 80 units of affordable units. Are they in one section or they're distributed all over?
I'll let the
Uh,
architect
Over
distribute
45.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I will answer it because it's a question that's an expectation. The units are dispersed within the entire building. We
Mhm.
can't just identify a location in the building and set them there. You wouldn't do that as a practical matter, but it's not permitted anyway. So they will be equally dispersed throughout the building.
Okay. On the site plan, there is a liquor store and a grocery. Is it part of the development?
It is not part of the
In
development.
George?
It's
No,
not.
no. Okay.
All right, if
Other questions?
Chris, will you need to give me back as the host and then I can give it to the architect if he has we've got nothing but PowerPoints tonight. This is amazing. PowerPoint instruction. I can
Fantastic.
pull it right up. Who's up next? What PowerPoint?
it's where are you, John?
I'm
Zimmer?
here. If
John
you want me
Zimmer.
just to go, I don't know if you need to introduce me, Tom, or.
Yeah, before I do that, I don't want to be remiss. I would like to introduce the principal development client, Shimon Jacobowitz. I know he's on. He's hiding back there somewhere, but I just wanted to introduce you to know that he's here to say hello to you as a board. I know that he was on the screen before. I don't know where he is, but I just wanted to introduce him. And also George C. Wright Jr. from the Abundant Life Church, who's obviously a very interested spectator here tonight, to be, to make sure that you were aware that the church was also represented here. They're here somewhere.
Yes,
Mr.
how are you?
Kelso, we see them. Mr. Seawright's a legend in his own right, so you're in good company there, Shimon.
Tom, I'm here.
Yeah, we see you. But
Okay, very good.
Seawright, you want to say a few words? You can. It's up to you before we move over to the other PowerPoint presentation.
No, we're very excited about this project, myself and my father. So we're very excited. Thank you.
Great. And Mr. Shimon, we liked your project, or at least I did. I'm not a voting member, so I can tell you, in Brooklyn, that's pretty sharp. That was a pretty sharp building.
And that's what we're looking forward to.
Yeah, I checked you out. It was really nice. I like that. All right.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Kelso, you want to introduce the gentleman thinks he needs an introduction. So
Yeah. Yes, Mr. John Zimmer.
would
You there,
like,
John?
would you like to be the host, John?
He's muted, Tom.
He's not getting paid enough. See, he would have had that on, like, just keep it on.
Tom, he's muted.
No, John, you're mute. You're mute.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good now.
Perfect. Can hear you clearly.
Fantastic. Okay. I have been having some technology issues here tonight, so I just want to
As an architect,
introduce
you're
my.
not supposed to admit that.
Would you like to be the host? No.
Can I, please?
Chris, you got to give me the host power back.
At the risk of embarrassing myself, how do I do that?
Hit the 3 number, like go to my screen. There's like 3 little bullet points there, like periods. Hit that, and then it said make me the host. You actually can make John the host direct from your site.
All right, we'll see.
Go to John.
John Zimmer, make host.
There you go.
Go ahead, John,
There
you're
you
the
go.
host.
And there I go. Okay, great. So thank you all for letting me share this. We are also excited about the project. I am John Zimmer with Fogarty Finger Architecture in New York. Within our office, I am very focused on the New Jersey aspects of the practice, and I've overseen the design and the construction of many projects in predominantly in Jersey City and Hoboken, and I'm excited to be working in New Brunswick. It's a great project. It's a great site. It's an opportunity to make something really special, and we're excited to be a part of it. It's a lot of things happening in New Brunswick, and this is a neat part of the city, and the whole Lower George redevelopment intentions and zoning are very much in line with the kind of work that we want to be a part of. And the project overview you heard from Tom, but this slide is meant to show just the big picture, what it is that we're what is the building by the numbers in its basics: 45 stories, 800 apartments, studios 1s and 2s, and these 80 minimum affordable units. And you can see the breakdown of those here on your screen. It's a 6-story parking structure, including a cellar parking level that's broken up into a combination of self-park and valet, and we'll show you how that works when we get to the plans. And of course, we have the 50 spaces for the church in the structured parking and another 25 spaces in a surface lot. And there's approximately 25,000 square feet of retail as well. It's predominantly a residential building, and these 800 units are going to form a community almost unto itself. But of course, we're very focused on how that fits into the larger community. But it's not just a residential building. It's also got this very exciting component to it, which Ifni and George brought to the project from the start, which is the idea of a destination retail venue that would attract people from all around. And you could, this is one concept for what it might be, which would be it could be a Brooklyn Bowl, which, if you're familiar with it, they have live music there, and there's a restaurant and bowling, and it's just kind of a multi-purpose entertainment center. Or there could be climbing walls or fitness aspects to it. But just the idea that this is not just a clothing store, but a place where people gather. It's an assembly space, and it's a place where people want to go and have a good time. From an architectural perspective, we based it on influences of the site, and there are many things that make the site exciting. And I mentioned already its relationship to the kind of already built up portions of downtown New Brunswick, and its kind of first or next, link in the necklace, or whatever you want to call it, that leads you down to the Lower George area down here. The proximity to the river is quite lovely, and it will, as we get up to the upper levels, allow some pretty fantastic views. And my Google Earth is going to freeze on me and not allow you to see it, but you actually will see all of these skylines from the upper levels of the apartments, which is kind of fantastic. So these are the influences on the site, the river, the views, the relationship to downtown. And that is kind of the driver of the basic geometry, basic massing, and orientation of the building. It's this, for much of its height, it is this L-shaped building. And as somebody pointed out, we get up above a certain height and we step back and it becomes more of a simple slab. But it's predominantly this L shape, and the L is open to kind of the existing part of downtown, and this to critical, what we see as a very important intersection of George and Morris, and kind of the view of the building as you come down this way. But then also, the views of the skylines in the distance, the views over the river, and kind of taking the geometry of the river and using that as an influence. We're on this bend in the river and making that kind of soften the kind of strict L shape of the tower and forming a kind of receiver or a cup that welcomes downtown. And that leads directly to the basic footprint of the building. And this is, I'll get back and get deeper into the plans in a moment, but I just wanted to show you basically that the design didn't come from nowhere, that it has been considered, that it is responsive to the site and to the context, and that we are both aware of and participating in the kind of larger urban goals of the redevelopment plan. And let me just go back to, I cannot go back to full screen. You're well familiar with the site. You already listened to Chris's presentation. It is currently undeveloped. There's nothing to tear down to build the property, which is always a nice thing. Basic site plan you also got from Chris. I'm not going to dwell on it too much, but you see this L shape of the tower again. This is the church over here. This is the grocery, the Bravo, here on the corner of Morris and George. And then I'll take a little time to go through the ground floor experience and the basics of the plan and how you access the building. Let me zoom in here a minute. So just to orient you again, this is Morris on the right-hand side of the plan and Nielsen on the bottom of the plan. And the sloping site makes it a little bit difficult to understand the ground floor, because if you're high up on Morris Street, the same level that is at grade on Nielsen is underground at the upper corner of Nielsen. So you have to kind of take the ground floor in two pieces. But the main residential building entrance is off of Nielsen, and there's a pull-out proposed here. And you can see the kind of front door of the residential building and its lobby. And then even further here. So if you're in an Uber or getting dropped off by somebody, you would pull into this pull-out. Or if you're a pedestrian coming from the train, you'd be walking down the sidewalk and you'd come in through this main lobby entrance, which gives you access to the main elevator cores of the building. There are a total of 5 passenger elevators, low rise and high rise. So not all elevators stop on all floors. Low rise elevators here and high rise are here. And then usual multifamily amenities, package room, leasing office, mail room on this side. This is the driveway that Chris was discussing. You can see dashed in here this city culvert that he was referring to, which, you know, we met with the city engineers. They're okay with us using this as a driveway. And keep in mind that the cemetery to the left has a steeply sloping hill here. So this driveway is screened from the surroundings by the topography. It's deeper than the at grade of the cemetery up here once you get up to the top of this hill. Loading docks are your first turn off of the driveway here, and you have a dedicated freight elevator for the building. This allows you to pull in with your moving truck, and it could be, the biggest apartment is a 2-bedroom apartment. It's probably one of the smaller trucks that people will be moving into the apartments with. The bigger trucks are really seen for the destination retail use, but you pull in your truck and you or your movers would have access to this dedicated freight elevator, take you up to the building, up to your floor, and you could unload and move into your apartment. The great thing about having a dedicated freight is you're not moving in through the front door, you're not having any traffic out here on the street, and you're not going through or impacting the vertical circulation for the rest of the tenants. So a really nice functionality to have for a very large building like this. Also from the loading is a dedicated elevator for the use of the destination retail. So they're loading, they will have large loading and unloading and trash operations. So they have a dedicated elevator for their use that is also directly accessible from the loading dock. And it's this at grade retail, which is not small, is still 6,000 square feet of retail, that would probably be loading and unloading from the smaller loading zone that Chris indicated that's here on Morris. You'll see there's 2 parking entrances. One of them, the first one is for self-park, and that goes up, and the spaces for the church would be on these first 2.5 levels of the parking deck of the self-park structured parking. You can see the EV spaces are labeled on the plans. We do comply with the requirements for EV spaces and for accessible, ADA accessible spaces. So you go up two self-park levels, you go down to a valet level for the parking. And I can just jump quickly to the seller plan. Hopefully. There we go. Oops. Let me see if I can get it back here. There we go.
You're good.
I wasn't lying when I said I was having tech problems. It's been doing that to me all night. So hopefully,
Well, you've
hopefully
done a
doesn't happen
good
again.
job so far.
Thank you. I'm spending a lot of time on this plan. I don't mean to bore everyone, and I know I'm meant to be brief. I think you want to know how the building works, so I apologize if I'm being too long-winded, but I'll speed it up here. Valet parking comes down here. You drop off your car with a valet. You've got some parking stackers here. So a lot of, you can see 220 spaces in the valet operation. Also building services and building management, back of house building management operations are down here in the cellar level. That detention tank that Chris was mentioning is kind of on a sandwich level overhead of those back of house spaces. And again, with a sloping site, what you have is the entrance to the kind of destination retail, which is here on the upper right-hand corner of the plan on the right, is a full story above the entrance to the residential lobby. You come in here, and this is where their passenger elevators are to take you up to the destination retail, which is on the 7th floor. So, and this is also the church parking lot is a full story above the typical driveway entrance down here. So that temporary access or emergency access to the garage from the church is also up here on this upper level. Residential units start right away on the 2nd floor, but these are the high volumes of these double height spaces that you see on the rest of this plan. Working our way up through the building, on 3 sides, the parking garage is lined with residential units. This is always a great thing. It means you're not just building, a tower on top of an expressed 6-story parking garage. You actually see residential units and life and lights and people moving around and activity instead of just a parking garage. So this is, on both Nielsen and Morris, which are 2 street frontages, you get residential units. And we'll get into more detail on what those units are a bit later. The 6th floor is currently proposed to be a combination of parking and some of our building amenity spaces. The building will have approximately 15,000 square feet of interior amenities. These will consist of lounges, fitness rooms, co-working spaces, kids' rooms, these kinds of things. And they're located in various areas throughout the building. And then when you get up to 7, you see you have, this destination retail. This is showing this bowling concept. So you would come in on your dedicated elevators up to the top floor. You would check in. You would have this bowling alley, or it, we don't have a tenant locked in yet. Ownership doesn't have a tenant locked in yet, but some concept like this, where you'd have an activity space and then a restaurant space. They would be double height. It would have, decent views going out over Morris Street. And again, and their back of house space is a buffer zone between that retail and the residential units. And you can see their dedicated freight elevator is coming up in their back of house space. But the two will never know each other are there. The point is to not have a direct connection between this residential and this retail. You don't really want that direct of a connection. With these units, the quality of these units is, I think, enhanced if they are just independent. So they're still using their elevator core. This is the upper volume of those double height spaces. You get a larger suite of amenities up here on the 9th floor, and an expansive outdoor terrace. You can see there's 16,000 square feet of outdoor roof space that would be amenitized. That might include, sports areas, barbecue areas. There's a pool here at the end. There would be a deck with chaises around it. Active, fun space. And again, with you're up at the 9th floor at this point, so with good views out. Above this amenity floor, it becomes predominantly residential. You see this L-shaped plan again. So the river is below us. We're picking up and receiving this kind of views of downtown New Brunswick. And this important corner over here, you see from that sketch I showed earlier, these kind of softening, these curves that are sliced out of the building. The L-shape floor plan and the low-rise elevators go up to the 34th floor. On 35, there's a smaller amenity suite and another outdoor terrace over the roof of that space, again with more residential units. And then above that, it becomes a simple bar shape that goes up to the 45th floor. Basic building section, and again, everything is in compliance with the redevelopment plan, 45 stories, 450 feet, lot coverage, all aspects of building bulk are completely in compliance with the redevelopment plan. There's a section through the lower part of that L-shaped tower, so it's basically cut east-west looking south at the larger tower behind you. This one on the left is cut north-south looking east, and you are seeing the full 45 stories of the tower. You see this amenity level with its walkout. You see the structured parking with its liner of residential spaces. You see this destination retail space sitting on top of that structured parking. Quality of the units is very important. As an office and personally, we are super dedicated to providing great living spaces for the people who will occupy our buildings. There are many types of units, the floor plans, there are these curves and there are corners and there are many things, but this is a representative sample of the kinds of units. In New York, we do studios as small as 400 square feet or even less. These are over 500 square foot studios. You see that they have many of them, not 100%, but many of them have these sleeping alcoves in them, even when they're studios. And even with closet space off of that sleeping alcove, this practically rates as a junior 1-bedroom, except that the sleeping alcove isn't on the windows. 17 feet of frontage on the living area of the studio. It's fantastic. The 1-bedroom, many walk-in closets in the 1-bedroom apartments. Common complaint, not enough storage, right? So walk-in closet, in unit washers and dryers for every unit in the building. Peninsula kitchen, room for a dining table because you've got enough depth here. It's not a squished unit where you can't fit a dining table in it. Obviously, all aspects of the living units comply with accessibility laws, bathrooms, clearances at doors, everything else. 2-bedroom apartments usually split to support either families or roommate situations with a master bedroom on one side and a 2-sink lav, 4-fixture bath. Again, large walk-in closets for both bedrooms, in unit washer dryers, and then a shared bath here. So just to go over some more renderings and views of the building. We are excited to be, you can see this kind of march of taller buildings from across the river, and we are the next one. And you have a combination of red brick, gray metal panel. We think a nice counterpoint to it would be this. It's a curtain wall building. This kind of bone colored, ivory colored metal panel and glass. We break up the facade into multi-story units. It helps to give the building a sense of scale. I'm sure you've all seen buildings where every floor is its own little rectangle. This tries to take a slightly different approach and say we suppress some of the horizontals so that we can create a 4-story grouping of floors that again kind of lends the building a bit of a sense of scale. You can see this taller 45-story portion, and this is the lower 34-story portion here of the L shape. And it is kind of a building on a base concept. It has this residential portion that wraps the parking, is 6 stories tall. And you can see that the tower portions are generally set back from that on Nielsen and on Morris, which also allows, I think, just kind of an interesting massing and an attractive massing to the building. View from George Street and Morris, that corner. You can see the Bravo grocery here in front of you, and I guess the UAW building here on the left. And you can see this curving kind of catcher's mitt for the views and for the response to downtown. The ground floor retail is very important. It helps to support pedestrian life and activity. There is a substantial amount of ground floor retail here. It is tall. It's extensively glazed and transparent. We want to see this as a wonderful active streetscape. People going in and out of what might be restaurants or clothing stores or whatever they might be, whatever tenants end up taking the space. But it's meant to be between these street level retail opportunities and the destination retail up on the 7th floor, just a really vital and energetic addition to the life of New Brunswick. So this is looking kind of across Nielsen. You see the residential building entrance here under this prominent canopy that helps to mark that entrance. The pull off on Nielsen here, you come in through these double doors. Retail on here, we kind of hope this is a coffee shop that actually goes with the building lobby. It's always a nice adjacency to have. You pass in and out, and there I go again. Almost done. This would be a building lounge on the left. I see there's a lot of interior design development that has to happen. This is a preliminary rendering, but it would be an attractive, warm space. You'd see residents of the building hanging out there. And then everything that you're seeing from here again is not parking garage. It's residential units. These are, these would have apartments behind these windows, not ventilation for garage. And that's it. That's the overall of the building. And any questions, I guess.
Did a great
Thank you.
job. John.
Fantastic presentation.
Chairman, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's a fantastic presentation, John. It's a beautiful looking building. That's all I wanted to say. And Dan, let's turn it over to questions.
Absolutely. The chair was gracious enough to open it up to the public. And we're going to do that. So
I
first,
have a question before the public.
oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Take care of it.
Yeah, I have like 3 questions. Is Abundant Life, are they partners or part owners?
Well, I'm not sure what the distinction is.
Are they owners?
Yeah, they are partners, and in a partnership of ownership, because they currently own the land, so they have a partnership interest in the entity. Correct.
Okay. Are they involved in during the rental period? Are they involved in recruiting clients, especially for the affordable units?
I don't know the answer to that, but I'm sure that they will have a major role to play, particularly with identifying the affordable units and helping out with the advertisement for that. But
Okay.
I'm sure they'll play a major role.
Okay. On the financing side, Uh, I think there is a commitment of 60 million by Jet Capital, 30
Yeah.
million by equity M plus CF, and equity financing by Serafin. And the total development cost is like 300 something million.
A little over 300 million.
Yeah. And what I see here is only 90 million. So I don't know, maybe I missed something.
Shimon, you might want to maybe fill that out a little bit for us.
Yeah, I think what you're seeing is more the financial, the equity besides the construction loan. Tom, on the construction loan is the Galaxy that was provided to you.
Yes.
We just got some recent letters showing that there's two entities that will give a construction loan.
Correct.
Excuse me? I didn't hear you.
I said, we got some recent indication from two different financial entities that they would be giving a construction loan. One, I think, is $275 million. So that was a gap that I talked to Mr. Kelso with, and that was, I don't know whether you've gotten those letters yet. Tom, did Dan Toto get those letters?
Did who get?
Did Dan get them?
Yes.
Do we have those letters, Dan?
No.
On the rest of the capital stack, the construction
Yeah.
loan to match the equity?
Yeah,
I think that we provided the equity at 90 million.
yes.
Yeah.
So, and the potential for equity may be a little over 100 million, but I think that's still, what Shimon is doing is they're out in the,
Significant.
we just wanted to show you they got $90 million.
And also we have a construction, a letter of construction commitment for, I think, Sean, it's $275 million.
Yes.
Will we
Okay.
be able to get the letter of commitment?
Well, this is conditioned on a redevelopment agreement coming back to you. And when the redevelopment comes back, we'll have more of the financing plan and the actual commitments.
Yeah, I mean, I
I
think
think what the commissioner's asking for, pardon me, I think what the commissioner's asking for is the letter that you have currently. Are we able to get that?
Yes,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
think Dan has it. If
Yeah,
not,
we thought-
I can send it to anybody.
Yeah, we
Oh,
thought you had it already.
My legal counsel had it. I don't have a copy in my possession, but
No, you just
At
have
least-
two of them. That's why. I'm
that legal
asking.
counsel, well, I mean, Mr. Hoffman, I'm not concerned about Mr. Kelso. He's on the other side technically. But Mr. Hoffman has it. I'm good. And then the board will get it. But I think, your point's well taken, Mr. Kelso. He's got 90 million plus. And
Yeah.
we've cleared some hurdles.
Yeah, what we typically do in these kind of agreements, this is a preliminary stage right now, because I mean, the reality is you're not going to have all of your financing in place before you're even
course.
designated, because you got to go through a process. At some
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
Of
we
course.
will provide a full financial plan, which is called for in the redevelopment agreement. And that may be within 9 months or a year where we have a full financial plan in place. By that time, we have a better understanding of the overall cost of the project. They've been able to project out what their revenue projections are, and that allows them to get their construction and permanent financing in place, and likely additional equity participation. But it was important for you to see that they're sitting on $90 million right now in equity, which makes this, a viable project at this stage, and then to
course.
be filled out with a full financial plan down the road.
And that's all going to be required in the redevelopment agreement.
Yeah, I mean, it's no different than even when Devco does the Helix project. They're not showing you a construction commitment. They're still applying for tax credits.
Right.
All of that is in a process, but we're showing you the path. And then we get to the end of the path and you get the plan.
And you did mention that early on, Mr. Kelso, about fire and exploring different avenues. You did cover.
Yes.
All right, they got 30% equity, man. All right, what other questions do we have?
Before I open up to the public, that counts for my liaison and the rest of the members of NBHA Housing Redevelopment Board. You can ask your questions now. You can also ask them later. Okay,
Another from the board, liaison, public? Okay.
Chair,
I'm
we'll
s-
go
Yeah,
to
hi.
the public.
Charlie,
Oh, go
oh,
ahead.
sorry. Is it my turn?
Go ahead,
Oh.
sir. I'll go after you.
No, ladies first.
Okay.
Sorry, Charlie. Who was up?
Charlie was up. Go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening once again. I got to start by pointing out I was led to believe I was going to be able to make comments on the first resolution that the board adopted, but it wasn't open to the public, so I didn't get that chance, and I'll hold those comments and questions till later in the meeting. Hopefully I'll get the chance to put them on the record at least. But as far as this project goes, I wanted to say it's pretty obviously the largest development in the history of New Brunswick, if I'm not mistaken. I think we're in the middle of a housing crisis, so I'm inclined to support large developments, but I want to know why only 10% affordable housing. I mean, the other project in the same neighborhood we heard about that Penrose is working on, much more affordable. This if we're doing 800 units, why only 10% affordable?
No, hold on. First of all, the plan provides for 10% minimum. I already indicated to you that we are looking to do an additional over 10%, but it will depend on the funding availability for those affordable units. As you know, Charlie, that funding needs to be part of any affordable units that you do. But my client's optimistic at this point that they're going to do more than 10%, but they comply with the plan currently and they need to move forward. I would also say that I'm not diminishing a $300 million project, but that's only half the cost of Helix 1. So
Yeah.
There are other larger projects that are happening.
I guess if you look at it in terms of money, but I'm looking in
that's
terms
what
of
you
housing units.
Oh, no, it's the bigger, I think from a residential perspective, this is the largest and the tallest.
Right, by far. So I think it was put on the record the principals are Mr. Jacobowitz, Mr. Seawright, and the church itself.
Yeah.
Can I understand the split between the three? Are they three equal partners, or is what is the cut?
It's not that simple. Each has a different participation element to it associated with land value, with preferred returns. It's not something that it's required to be made public. You need to know who the owners are over 10% and their ability to complete the project. But I will say all of them are participants.
Okay, and I did want to understand in terms of experience, do any of the principals, any of the folks doing this project, have they built anything of this magnitude, anything of this size, 800 units?
Right, we provided the information as part of the application that is a combination of Mr. Jacobowitz's company that has done similar projects, but not necessarily this many units, but they are partnered with a construction company out of New York City that has done work with them previously, who have done substantial high rises in New York City.
Okay, and the name of that company?
They've done up to 600.
Yeah, Ray
Just
Construction.
want to add,
Ray's Construction.
and I want to add that they've done a lot in the state of New Jersey as well.
Okay, yeah, it's Ray Builders Inc.
Okay, I did, understand that it was, the architect was saying it's very much in line with the redevelopment plan for the Lower George Street 2. And I couldn't help but note that this plan was crafted in response to this proposal, right? The redevelopment plan exists because the developers came to them and said, we want to build this. So it's not a surprise that it's in line with the plan that was approved. And I will note that the city council initially rejected the plan and voted it down before changing their mind and voting it in. And I just think if we're going to proceed with what is, by some measures, the largest development in the history of the city, we would be wise to, proceed with caution and not rush it. So I guess I'm just a little bit looking for more information here. Like, for instance, the authority website has nothing about this on it. I saw the slides tonight that were presented, and there was a lot there, and some of it was impressive. but you know, the public and I think even leaders in the city haven't really had a chance to review it yet. So it seems somewhat premature to jump in and designate a redeveloper, just given the lay of the land here. But that said, I'm interested in learning more about it. I think that you know, it's promising if it can be something that provides affordable housing, and it's also just, you know, completely underutilized land. However, you know, have some concerns, and so I've put some of those on the record, and I hope that you know, the developer and the developers council and the housing authority board will continue to have a dialogue, whatever happens tonight on this project, that there'll be additional opportunities to ask questions and make suggestions and have input on it for not just me, but everyone else in the city of New Brunswick. So I think that's all I have on this item. I just want to confirm there'll be an additional public comment later to talk more.
Let me just respond briefly to Charlie. Yes, it is typical, not only in New Brunswick, but in all major redevelopment areas, to have a combination of a plan that's being proposed to work with the city planning authority in order to determine what is the best approach to the redevelopment that someone is coming forward with and proposing. It's a combination of recognizing what the developer wishes to do, as opposed to what the city feels from its own expertise in developing the city as a whole, it's willing to do. And the city's responsibility is to look to beyond the site and to see the nature of how it fits in to what the city's vision is for a particular area. And that's what results in a new redevelopment plan, an upgraded redevelopment plan. And yes, that's a process that's very typical. I also would point out when Charlie talks about additional times for input, as he knows, you know, this is only the first step in the process. What this board is doing is approving the redeveloper and its concept because of the information that we provide to you. But the city process is only beginning. Obviously, this has to go before the city's planning board, and a lot of the items that typically, even the things that we talked about tonight, are vetted by the planning board. And I want to recognize that it's not just the city council that adopted this, but it goes to the planning board. The planning board reviews the plan and sends it back to the council for action. I would comment on the fact that, yes, this was previously not adopted. I think there was confusion over the affordable units and the inclusion of affordable units, which was clarified, and the city council unanimously approved it. So again, there's a vetting process that still goes on before the planning board, and Charlie, you know, I'm sure you'll be there. So, but this is really the first step. Of course.
Thank you, Mr. Kelso. Charlie, any other questions on this topic? Because we've got a couple hands here.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure there'll be another public comment opportunity. That's correct.
I'm going to give you some. Yes, sir. All right.
Okay, thank you. That's
Thank
all
you,
from me
Charlie.
on this.
Okay. Zach, remind me about the public comment. I kind of rushed it before to get to this
Yeah,
topic.
yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Andrea, with your hand up.
Hey there, everybody. Yeah, the gentleman prior stole some of my thunder, so I'm going to have to hit you all with another thunderbolt. So, you know, looking at this project, just the size, the scale, and the scope of it, it really appears that there's been a lack of transparency. You know, as the gentleman said prior, this wasn't listed on the website for the city. Again, I was a little concerned by that, and I just have some concerns about whether or not the public's being fully involved in this process, just given how large the project is. Additionally, when you think about developers, it would seem to me that the best way to kind of ensure that the church is getting the best deal is to open this up for some sort of competitive process to make sure that they kind of have the best deal on the plate. That's just sort of like something that kind of happens, right? You want to kind of pitch what you got to make sure that you're getting the best deal. And making sure that
I would just want to respond.
I'm sorry, sir. Let me just finish because I'm on a roll. If you don't mind, thank you so much. Right, and so when you look at the pictures, right? I mean, 800 units. That's really a lot, right? So I wouldn't be surprised in terms of like valuations for the land. I mean, it has to be up there, right? 75 million, I don't know, throwing out big numbers, whatever it is, it's a big darn number. And so it would seem to me that the church really needs to be made aware of what they're sitting on. It's a gold mine, and it's a once in a lifetime opportunity for their organization to really benefit from the land, right? So, in terms of affordable housing units, how does that align with their mission, right? Do they want more affordable housing units, and how can that kind of be set up so that happens, right? The surrounding community, how will that impact the surrounding community, right? It's great that 75 parking spots are going to be allocated, but a community is more than 75 parking spots, right? And not for nothing, the elephant in the room is it's gentrification, right? So how does that kind of fit in with the broader community? Like, I looked at the mock-ups, they were great, very new age. I love the idea of a coffee shop, but in looking at all those people down there, it definitely looked very, very Brooklyn. And I used to live in Brooklyn, right? It looked very downtown. So I don't know. I just think that there needs to be a lot more transparency. I think that there needs to be a level of mindfulness on behalf of all parties to just make sure that the folks involved are the right folks, that people are getting paid what they need to get paid, and that everyone is happy and satisfied at the end. Yeah, and those are really my comments. So
I
a lot
would
more
just,
transparency. Yes,
I
Hold
Tom.
on
just-
one second,
yeah.
Counselor. Andrea, have you completed your comment?
Yeah, I think for the most part I hit on all the big
All right.
things.
Just want to make sure so we're not talking over each other.
I appreciate you, ZM.
Counselor, thank you very much.
yes, with respect to Andrea, and I appreciate what you're saying, but I would respond to the notion that it's the housing authority as the redevelopment agency's responsibility to decide what's in the best interest of the church. Obviously, the church owns its property. It knows what its mission is. It knows, for example, what parking they need, and they know from their own experiences what the value of their property is. And to be
Well,
able to,
I hear you, Thomas. I hear you, Thomas.
Andrea, hold on one second. Andrea, we got to let him speak. We got to let him complete. He's on a
Got
roll, if you will.
Okay.
reasonable people could disagree on that, but I'm just suggesting to you, I think the church would be taken aback by the thought that somebody else is going to tell them what the best way is to develop their property.
no.
What the value is.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
but I appreciate what you're suggesting, and I'm not, I think to the extent that nothing is posted on the website, that's not this developer's responsibility to do. It's followed its rules. It followed the plan. The public had an opportunity to speak at 2 council meetings. It had an opportunity to speak at the planning board meeting when the plan was developed. The public process has been followed. So I don't want your comments to imply that somehow this is some form of surreptitious activity. We follow the rules, we do the public responsibility, and there's still more to come because the planning board has to be involved in the actual site plan. But I did want to just make the point about the church. I think the church has a right to make its own decision.
And I appreciate that, Thomas.
And hold on one second. I want to interject here. And we also happen to have the church on the call.
Oh no, and that's great. No, I guess I'm just a little sensitive towards the topic. So I just think in general, like when you have folks that have property, right? And this has been something that historically has happened when people have property and they're not necessarily experts in evaluating property or assessing property, and they're trying to engage in financial, very large deals. They might not have the level of fluency, right, about the topic, right? So we hear all the time about how folks are, given a certain amount of money for a certain piece of property, and then they were Jimmy Jams. So that's not a dictionary word, that's my word, but I think that we can kind of understand the spirit of that. So I'm glad that the church is on the line. I would just encourage them to make sure that they do their due diligence, and to make sure that they're getting the right amount of money and getting everything that they want from the deal, as is their right, given it's their property. And that's it. So
solid. Do we have any other comments from the public?
Zach, can I say something real quick?
Absolutely.
I appreciate Mr. Kelso, you clarifying this council position on this. It did pass on city council. The first time there were some questions. I was one of them that had some questions about it. So it is supported, this plan is supported by the city council. It is a massive, a big development. So it is, I know that all of us are doing due diligence. I appreciate people commenting, but we are doing the due diligence. And I think that, I hope that, you know, that at the end, we'll see the results that is gonna be a benefit to the community and doesn't impact that community in a negative way, right? Looking at it, I like to look at things that are going to be beneficial at the end for that part of the community. And that's part of my community because I live very clear, you know, very close to that area. So I'm looking forward to continue this conversation and see where we go from it. And hopefully I might be able to afford one of those apartments when, you know, once it's done. But I just wanted to say that to clear out that, so thank you for that clarification in terms of City Council, Mr. Kelso.
I thank you, Rebecca.
Well said, Madam President. Zach, I don't think there's any more public comment. We'll give you like a 3-second countdown. Holler out now or forever hold your.
I think we're good. I'm not seeing anything in the public about that. All right. Okay, fantastic. Do we have any comments from the remaining commissioners? Sometimes things are brought up when you hear the public speak.
I thought Doug had a comment.
Doug, Commissioner Pettis, you're on mute.
No, okay.
No, thank you, Yorgo. I don't have a comment. Appreciate it.
All right. I'd like to comment on this if it's okay. As of right now, that site is nothing, right? It's a dirt patch downtown. And we're proposing doing something spectacular there. And I do understand the community's consideration about making sure that it positively affects the surrounding area. But right now it's doing nothing for the surrounding area. So if there is a way to thread this needle and put what I do agree with Charlie is the largest residential development we've seen probably in the history of the city down there in a way that benefits the surrounding folks, let's do it. And we're working with the church and they have their own following and participants, and I'm sure they're all involved. One of my questions about this, and feel free to answer me as quickly as you have the information, local labor in building this thing. You know, one of the things that benefits the area is jobs created, albeit temporary, through the process of construction. Is that something that's available to folks out here? Is that something that's being actively pursued?
Yeah, as part of your typical redevelopment agreement, there is a priority given to local residents for certain job opportunities within the construction industry. And
Okay.
yes, that's part of a program that you've been running for years through the authority. I would also indicate that the project will be built with union labor.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I just wanted to comment on the record. That's all. Go ahead.
Yeah, we use Section 3 labor, but that's only for federal money. So if he goes and gets some federal money somehow, yeah. But we have a good labor base. I'll give him a list if it goes forward and so on. So, yep.
Mhm.
So Zach, without any further ado, if you're done, let's move for a motion in a second.
Okay, well, I
Oh,
motion.
sorry. Mr. Pettis has a
Wait.
question.
Oh, no, I'll make the motion unless the chairman wants to make the motion.
I'm not going to fight you for this. Make the motion.
Mr. Pettis makes a motion, second by Chairperson Wright.
Second, yes.
Roll call. Chairperson Wright.
Yes.
Commissioner Pettis.
Yes.
Commissioner Walde.
Yes.
Commissioner Medina Hernandez.
Yes.
Commissioner Giorgiani.
Yes.
Commissioner Dunlap.
Yes.
And Dale Cole is not with us, but he did text me. He said he's on the hook for the first dinner up at Centenary. All right, but he's not with us tonight. Motion passes. Congratulations. You've been designated as the new redeveloper.
All right, thank you very much, members.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
Thank you, Counselor.